Hello everybody, this is Fernando for the latest Ghosts and Spirits video. Well, I saw some good reactions the other day when it came to that video involving the popular subject of shadow people. This was that video where there was that user doing an analysis on them and then showcasing about what to do and some of the other characteristics tied to them. But it got a good number of views, good comments, and so I thought, why not showcase another example here, another user experience from the world of shadow people. In fact, it's from the reddit.com website. They're from a subreddit that I found called Shadow People, and I might feature more of these here as well because reading some of these experiences, each one is definitely unique and each one is also scary in their own outright position. But yeah, I'm going to go ahead and let's talk about this one here, and then let me know in the comments if you want me to continue with this subject and other user experiences soon. But it comes from a user by the name of VFV, and they titled theirs as Shadow Person Room Invasion as a Child. Let's go ahead and let's feature that here, and then I'll give my own thoughts and opinions on it afterward. So here's what they state. I'm not sure if this qualifies, as I was very young at the time and had an active imagination, but I will recount my version of events as best as I can. I was maybe 5 when I first noticed it. I lived in a house on a normal street and lived with my brother and my parents. I had my own room. Full disclosure, I was always afraid of ghosts at that age, and my mom just said that it was just because I had a wild imagination. This one night, I was put to bed as normal and said goodnight to my brother, who went to his own room, and I fell asleep. I don't remember waking up, but the house was quiet, and I think everyone had went to bed, so it was very late. I just laid there looking at my window. My eyes were open so long that my eyes had now adjusted to the dark, and the room was in gray focus. You know what I mean? When you start getting some night vision and the blacks turn gray. Anyway, I rolled over towards the door, and the first thing my eyes were drawn to was something on the floor, lying across the foot of the closed door. I thought it was my brother at first, but staring I could see that it was a shadow. Strange how black it was, as I had my night vision on, and nothing else in the room was so black and shadowy. I thought I could just stare a little longer to see if it could come into focus, but it didn't. I can't say how long I stared, but the shadow never made shape or came into focus. Maybe just a jumper or something. So I rolled back over and went back to sleep, thinking nothing more of it, and then woke up the next morning as normal. I remember looking at the door in the morning light and seeing nothing there. Figures was just my wild imagination playing tricks, like my mom says. So the next night I made sure when I went to bed that nothing was across the door, and then I went to sleep. I recount waking up only once that night and looking at the door only to see nothing. Even without staring and getting night vision again, I could see that there was nothing there. Must have been seeing things the night before, that's all it was. Maybe a week later or so, I started to wake up and check on the door to see if the shadow was back, and sure enough it wasn't. Fine, but soon after, I started to feel uneasy in bed at night and kept looking at the door on and off during my nights. I thought for sure there was something there and I just couldn't see it. Staring at the place the shadow should be gave me goosebumps. One night I remember thinking, or maybe I said it out loud at the door, I said, "You can show yourself," and nothing happened as I stared, and so I rolled back to face the window to go back to sleep. One last look, I thought to myself, and gingerly looked back at the door. The effing thing was there. Lying across the foot of the door as before, just black, a shadow. But not just a shadow, it had some blurred outline shape, almost as if someone sleeping with their knees up to their chest. It felt as though it was just staring at it. I was being sucked into it. Sort of like when a camera does a dolly zoom. I couldn't say what it was, only knew it was not friendly. It was cold, it was black, it was malevolent. I remember screaming so loud that my mom came bursting in her night dress and turning on the light. She held me as I tried to tell her what I had seen through sobs, and she told me it was just my wild imagination. I was terrified so much that I had to go and sleep in that I went beside my brother the rest of the night. Roll on maybe a week, maybe a month, I don't know. The thing started to appear more and more, almost consistently, terrifying me so much, always pulling me in like the room had been swung up on its side and gravity was pulling me hard towards it. This horrible shadow thing, this shadow person, it got to the point that it was there more often than it wasn't. I screamed most nights and my mom knew that it was because of the shadow person again without asking. The next night, my mom insisted my brother sleep in beside me so I wouldn't be afraid. He woke up at me shouting at the door to go away. I remember this part so well. He told me shut up and stopping before he could finish, grabbed my arm so hard I felt his nails digging in. He just started screaming, looking at the door. He could see the effing thing too. He kicked and screamed so much the covers came off, and my mom burst in and turned on the lights and seen us both cuddling and crying. Eventually, we both slept in my brother's room, and I would only go into my own room during the day. As adults, we have only spoken about it once, and he said that he thinks about it often and had to get a cat because he was scared to be alone. I'll always remember that feeling of being sucked into the shadow as it lay there with its knees to his chest, never taking full shape. It never followed me again after we moved, and I sometimes wonder if it's still there. And then that's it. That's everything that the user VFV mentioned in their story. So let's go ahead and let's talk about that here. First off, some interesting stuff, right? When it comes to this encounter, here you had it in as the user described it, a house and a normal street. There they were with their parents and their brother as well. And then he was in his bedroom. And then they saw that thing. All of a sudden, it was just there as a mass. And then it was gone. And so thinking that maybe it was just a weird thing, a one-off, in other words, then that's when the user decided to ask it. This is dangerous, by the way, asking it to come on back. And so when that happened and they wanted to show yourself, it surely did. And then it just continued going on a routine basis. What was interesting to me, though, was that it was only focusing on that user, not anyone else, it seems like, in the family, at least at first. In other words, if everyone stayed in their rooms, wherever they were in the house, they would have been fine because it looks like this thing was just basically there in that user's room. And proof of this comes from the fact that the brother never really saw anything until they stayed in that room as well. And then both of them were essentially experiencing it right then and there. But yeah, it was definitely a menacing thing. It was always just staring at the user, giving a malevolent feeling, just making sure that it was, I don't know, feeding off of it, something along those lines as far as the fear that the user was having at the time. So much so eventually that the user nicely mentioned that the mother was believing in it too, and then stating in certain occasions that it was that quote-unquote shadow person too. But I also found it interesting towards the end when it came to the user getting a cat as well. It seems like these cats seem to make shadow people go away because they can see them and so on, and that probably unnerves them. And then the fact that this thing never followed them afterward. So in other words, it stayed with them in that room, only in that room, and then when the user left, it did not go to any other place that the user went afterwards. So interesting stuff either way. But let me know what your thoughts are when it comes to this, your comments as well. Love to hear is that too. Anyone have a more local experience like this too? Post it in the comments below. All right, everybody. Thanks again as always. Take care. Bye.